Okay, hello everyone. I'm Benny Lim. I'm the director of the Master in Communication and Media Studies program with Università Telematica Picasso or Picasso Online University. So today we are doing um, a seminar, with three short lectures that is relevant to our program. Now, our program is a one-year master program that covers a total of 7 courses and as well as one final dissertation. So some of the or three of the presentations that you will hear today, I think they are all part of our master program. And all three of us are faculty members in this master program, and we are all based in Asia. So I'm based in Hong Kong, and then later we have Shaw Hong Se, who is based in Bangkok, and we have Lisa Wong, who is based in Jakarta. Yeah. So without further ado, I think we will begin our lecture. So this is what's going to happen. We will each present our 15 minutes lecture, and thereafter we will proceed with the Q&A. So it's a very casual, session. Yeah. All right. I will start off with my lecture first. Now, my lecture is about Chinese men on social media. Okay, let me stand by my screen and start. Yeah. Okay. All right. So can you see my full screen? Okay, perhaps I should end show first and share again. Okay, so my topic is Chinese men on social media. And now this is something that I think is quite interesting. That is quite a new development, which I hope to share with every one of you. Now, first and foremost, since the topic is about men, I think it's good to talk about men first. Yeah, actually, men is actually quite understudied. Yeah, in many academic fields. I mean, if you are familiar, you will know that we always study about female in different perspective, and of course, there is a lot to study about female, especially how they are being subordinated sometimes in this capitalist society, in this patriarchal society. So, but here, in this particular lecture today, I'm actually exploring men as socially constituted in this heteronormative and capitalist patriarchal society. So I'm not trying to define that there is a specific way men are born with. Yeah, it's really everything is socially constituted. Yeah, even men. Yeah, in terms of how they behave and their life experience, these are all socially constituted. And of course, men also have a very different experience, yeah, as women. And I think this is something that we will talk about later on. Now, generally, or I would say historically, from past to present, men are expected to be breadwinners of their families and to fight for their countries. I think this is in the case of Singapore, where I come from, that all men, we have to serve, national service. So we are expected to fight for our countries. And most of the time, if you see any kind of movies or TV shows, right, you will tend to see that the masculine activities of men on so-called mainstream media, yeah, whether on TV or on film, we usually will see them as erotic. What do I mean by masculine activities? Yeah, which is really you will see like a man flexing the muscle or like under the sun, having a tan, breaking out a sweat. But usually it's not how we typically define erotic. Yeah, whereby we don't really need to see, like in the case of women, we need to see naked bodies or private parts. No, it's not so much about that. For men, it's really seeing how they carry out certain masculine activity. Yeah, that will make us feel, or that will make the viewer feel, yeah, the kind of like erotic kind of gazing of the men. So at the same time, it is a privileging of the physical penis, whereby we always think about the physical the physical penis as something that is very strong, but so much so that it should be obscure, yeah, that we don't actually see it in mainstream media, and this is quite unlike for female, right? In a lot of the mainstream media, sometimes in a lot of the show to show that feminine side, sometimes you will see that there's a lot of very erotic bodies, being reviewed. So this is again a different experience. Now then we move on and talk about social media. So social media today has become a large part of our day-to-day routines. I think all of us here are very familiar with social media, and it's a very crucial communication tool for people to connect and stay in touch. Now, most of the time, we will say that social media is interactive. It's non-anonymous. Now, when we say non-anonymous, we means that you have to give yourself a kind of an identity when you join. Of course, the identity can be fake, right? It doesn't has to be real, yeah. But usually, the idea is non-anonymous. It's network-based internet technologies. And at the same time, when you are on social media, you are actually interacting between real and multiple virtual worlds at the same time. So most of the time when we are on our Facebook, on our phone, or if we are on our social media, we are definitely in at least two worlds, right? We are in the world of the social media and we are in this real physical world, right? At least two worlds. But it could be more because sometimes we are navigating across a range of different social media platforms, yeah, at the same time, which include all the chats and include all the other forms of social media as well. And one of the key word in social media is, of course, sharing, right? The idea of sharing. And sharing is not a new concept. I mean, we have all known to share. Even when we are very young, our parents would teach us the importance of sharing. But social media actually give it a new kind of prominence, yeah, that we probably would not imagine, yeah, or the kind of sharing that we are exposed to. And perhaps I can talk a little bit more about this, yeah? Now, sharing is often considered an ethical and good human practice, yeah? And, it's good to share, right? You have to care and you have to love. So sharing is always about caring. And this is something that we were taught as a child, yeah, long time before, or when we were young. But in the case of social media companies actually depend on content to survive, and sharing of the content becomes a selling point. So they are, social media companies, they actually try very hard to get you to share or to get people to share, right? So that there will be a kind of a circulation, it will go viral, and there's an attack there will be an effort to frame the importance of sharing. Yeah, there's so much so that sharing is important on social media, but there's also a very economic reason behind, right? Where because social media companies depend on this content to survive and you need content to move around. So in a way, sharing is no longer selfless. And when we say selfless, we will think about sharing sometimes where, when we share with someone, we don't expect something in return, right? That is also the good ethical value that we were taught, yeah? But on social media, sometimes it's not really about a selfless act, right? It's also about producing, disclosing, and revealing a lot of your information in the process of sharing, yeah? So it's not really a selfless act. And of course, we are also now very used to sharing our own identity or, once changing identities on social media, right? Because we play so many roles in our life and, and whenever there's a new role, yeah, we tend to share it on social media. Like, for example, if you have just gotten married, you will share it on social media. If you become a mother or father, you will share it on social media, right? And these are things that we tend to share, our changing identities, yeah, on social media. Now, then we move on to social media and men, yeah, the connection between the two. Now, as we, I think, many researchers, they have noted that social media is increasingly used by men to promote, yeah, and sell themselves, yeah. And this is in a way to build up their so-called digital, reputation, yeah, online. Yeah, you build up a reputation online, and there is this conscious self-performance that you have to present yourself in a certain way, right? It's a self-performance, so much so that it is a curated process. It's almost like you are you are a curator of your own, yeah, or of your own self. And here you're presenting yourself on social media. So social media is now a platform to sexualize men, right? And in the way when we say sexualize men is to produce media spectacle, to draw attention of ladies and of course of men as well, yeah. And in a way, this is also linked to the idea of neoliberalism, right? Whereby it's free market competition, and whoever I mean, the fittest will survive, the strongest will survive, the most popular will survive, the one with the best branding will survive. Yeah. So now we can see, I mean, some pictures there for you to take a look. Now, and this is where I think I want to bring in a book and this author called Jamie Hakim. Yeah. I mean, he wrote this book in 2019 called Work That Body. And of course, he used the concept of neoliberalism as a way to look at men. And he mentioned in the book that the concept is gendering and that it feminizes all those it attempts to subject. So in a way that, you know, in this neoliberal kind of society, yeah, you know, the subjects will be feminized, yeah, in his argument. And this feminization process, yeah, is whereby the lived experience of the man is now closer in line to women. So men are now experiencing a life that's very similar to women, that of which, you know, women has experienced for many years. So, I mean, so, you know, whatever I'm saying today here actually is nothing new in you know, to women as well, you know, to the lived experience of women. But now the interesting phenomenon is that it's also happening in men. And of course, there's a lot of discussion. There could be a lot of debate and discourse that goes around it. So, and what do we mean by this feminization process? Like, for example, to sexualize the body for value creation. And this is, you know, very much in the media. This has always happened to female bodies, right? This is not something uncommon. Yeah, but we're starting to see the sexualizing of the male body for value creation. For example, gym, fashion, makeup, you know, lots of makeup tutorials that are actually done by men these days. Yeah. And of course, there's also the weakening of social, cultural, political, and economic power of men, right? I mean, given today's day and age and the precarious working conditions, women have long experienced under capitalism, but now men are also experiencing this weakening. And this weakening in the context of Hakim is a feminization process. So I start with some examples. So using, you know, Hakim's idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it to some of the, you know, some of the examples or case studies, you know, which I gather about Chinese men. Yeah, and maybe we can do a bit of a discussion here. So male bodies have become the ultimate accessory, yeah, through working out in the gym. So a lot of time, you know, men, they go to the gym, they work out their bodies, and they become this ultimate accessory to gain what we call erotic capital. In a way to showcase, yeah, your erotic body, yeah, and to gain some kind of sexual desirability. Now, this is a little bit different from what I mentioned at the beginning, because historically, when I say that in traditional media or in mainstream media, most of the time, men doesn't gain that kind of erotic status through their body, yeah, their body, but rather the masculine things that they do, like their, you know, the farming, the very man stuff that they do, yeah, being a soldier, being a brave person. But now we are seeing that they are actually using their body, yeah, to gain this so-called erotic capital. And of course, the outcome, yeah, whatever outcome, some outcomes here by this, you know, Taiwanese social media influencer. His name is Robert Hung. And some outcomes, of course, the outcomes, whatever outcome you see here on his body, are shared on this online marketplace. Yeah. When we say it's a marketplace, again, you know, there's a certain link to this whole, you know, neoliberal idea. And of course, so in a way, they become laborers, yeah, or labels, but at the same time, they are also advertisers of their own self, yeah. So these social media influencers are actually what we call visibility labels, yeah. So they are actually labels of social media. They do work for social media, and the key idea is to be shared, right, to go viral. But they are also visibility label. When we say visible, means, you know, they need to be seen, right? They really need to be seen in this public domain of the social media platform. So I give you a quick example, yeah. Show you just a quick.
早安，现在是早上7点半。
Maybe I just jump to somewhere. So this is a day about, this is actually a, you know, a day in his life, but of course
早上就是要喝温开水。
I mean, on this very day, he's going to do an ad, yeah, for which is quite interesting because
这是今天要穿的衣服。
like typically you don't get to see like a very
然后现在先来抓头发。
fast food.
Gel.
And I will move a little bit further. So he's now doing an ad for KFC. So he has become, so much so a social influencer, right? And now he's being invited to do advertisement for KFC.
你们知道我的肌肉是吃什么长出来的吗 ？KFC。有没有很好笑？有没有很好笑
？Just stop here. Okay. Now, so this is one type, yeah, the gym body type. Now, on TikTok now, or in the Chinese equivalent of TikTok, which is Douyin, yeah, we also start to see a lot of the proliferation of Chinese men. And I just want to bring in one such example. There's so many, yeah, but I'm just going to bring in one example for discussion. And we are starting to see a growing number of videos featuring only men, usually young adult male, and the camera only focus on them. But whoever is behind the camera, and usually a phone camera, is a female. So it's actually a female person who is actually recording a male person and then, and putting it up on TikTok. Of course, some of these, narrative are scripted, right? And some of these looks a little bit more real, yeah, per se, more real. But we will never know, yeah, the mechanics behind. So it also suggests a kind of a female gaze. You can hear the female voice behind the camera, but you can never see the female. You can only see the male. And that's in a way a type of a female gazing into the man's life, which is again quite the difference, right, between the past where it's always the male gaze, yeah, looking at the female. And most of these videos portray heterosexual content, and the narrative are usually quite short-lived, yeah. So the stories are not going to last like for many months or many years, yeah. Usually they pop up on Douyin for a while, on TikTok for a while, and then they disappear, yeah. But some of these common narrative, I just name a few, yeah. This is just some, yeah. There are tons of them, yeah. Like for example, one very common narrative is that, this lady holding a phone bumped into a handsome young man on the train while on the way to work, and turn out the guy is a new colleague at work, yeah. So you can start to film this guy all day round and all day long. And then maybe another story is for another reason, for some reason, the handsome young man becomes the housemate, and suddenly, this man, has to cohabitate with this woman. And that's where you have another story that's coming up, but you will never see the female, right? Again, the female is always behind the camera. Or maybe there's a drunk younger brother of a good friend, yeah? So, your good friend call you, your female good friend call you and say that, oh, my brother is very drunk, he's very near your place, and he will just bump in for the night, stay over, and then you see that, oh, a handsome younger brother. Or maybe just a typical dating day of a couple, but again, you don't see the female, or a day in the life of a couple, only featuring the male. Of course, another genre that's really very popular is the male boss and the female subordinate. And you only see the male boss, right? You don't see the female subordinate. So the male boss is, of course, very kind and likes the female subordinate in this sense. So let me just show you a video. So this is actually more into a typical dating day, yeah. So
正是我只和自己的男朋友走，气氛略显尴尬，都不知道说什么。
A few moments later，
这个时候只要他主动一点，只要一点，正是我只和自己的男朋友走。
just a short video, yeah, not.
正是。
And of course, now we also get to see like a younger person, yeah, with an older lady behind the camera. But we actually don't know how old the person is, but probably someone older.
那天被闺蜜儿子抢吻后，
走吧，我送你回学校，晚了是不是进不去？不是这个意思。
那姐姐真的
也不是，我只有一张床，这里有没有你的洗漱用品？
自己的。
你
有弃权我了吧？
今晚你睡这儿，我去睡沙发。哎，你
谢谢，我以为你睡觉还。
那你想怎样？
姐姐晚安。
晚安。啊，
A few moments later.
那天，
Okay, so talking about this, yeah, so I will talk a little bit more about this Chinese man on TikTok or Douyin, yeah. Again, we also get to see like Hakim's idea of feminization. And this is actually quite clear with the idea of, in China, there are these new terms, yeah, called little puppies and little wolf dogs, yeah. So you're dating either little puppies or little wolf dog. And in Chinese, we call it, 小奶狗 and 小狼狗, yeah, which actually is a direct translation. So little puppies are males who are younger than their girlfriends. They are simple, loyal, caring, considerate, and they're very clingy. So very similar to the video that we saw just now. That one is a very clear example of a little puppy, yeah. And little puppy focus a lot on their relationship, unlike older men who are more career-minded. And if you remember in the beginning of my lecture, I mentioned that, historically, men are supposed to be career-minded, right? They are breadwinners. But this is in a way a kind of a reversal as well, yeah, where they are now more clingy, they focus more on the relationship. And little wolf dogs, on the other hand, they are also younger males, but they are also very good looking, they are very loyal, and they will make the older woman or they will make the women feel protected. But little wolf dog, of course, as the word wolf suggests, they because of, they will look a little bit more fiercer because they need to protect the woman, yeah, whereby the little puppy, they will look real, less fierce, of course. Yeah, they will look more like a puppy. Yeah, in that sense. So again, questions that we can think about is about gender roles. Yeah, shifting norms and conventions in relationships and family. Yeah, now that in a relationship, yeah, we start to see a kind of a difference. Yeah, in terms of the norms and conventions being portrayed here. And of course, if you could take like a few seconds, you can guess, which one is actually a wolf dog and which one is a puppy, yeah? I think you can decide for yourself, yeah? Okay, let's move on. Now, next, also, men are now being used as commodities, yeah, on social media, whereby, in the past, it's always female, right, being used as commodities. And this is a very good example because this is actually a phenomenon that just happened a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, about this, Tibetan boy called Ding Zhen, yeah, Tashi Ding Zhen. And he was actually on the way to buy some grocery, and then he was spotted by the photographer, who took a few seconds video of him, and suddenly he became an online sensation, yeah, because of his smile. Now you could see that he's from China, he's from Tibet, but he of course he looks, he doesn't look like the typical Chinese here, right? More Tibetan look. And he became a really kind of a social media phenomenon. And people really like him because they feel that he portrayed a kind of authenticity, yeah, very real and natural, yeah, versus the very curated lifestyle. So we are also starting to see that even on the social media, some people are getting tired of these very curated male videos, and they now like to go for something that is more real, more natural, a breath of fresh air. So Ding Zhen was really a breath of fresh air. And because of that, he suddenly becomes the face of everything, everywhere. Like these are just examples. Like this is in Hubei. This is really far away from where he lives in Tibet. Yeah, this is in Hubei, and they are saying that, they have to come and eat this well-known noodles from Hubei because the color of the noodle looks like his skin color. So they're trying to use all sorts of different ways to associate themselves with Ding Zhen. Like this one, even the Bing Ma Yong, yeah, the Dakota army in Shanxi, they could even find one army and then they claim that this statue looks like Ding Zhen and you should come and visit. Yeah, so this is a very interesting example. Okay, let's move on. This is my last slide. Now, the next example would be the Chinese male drags. Yeah, we're also starting to see that there are more and more Chinese men on social media that are actually showing or putting up, makeup videos of themselves. Yeah, so they're going into a drag. Okay, so again, within this neoliberal context, there is a proliferation of gender choices, but yet drag face problems participating in economic activities. Yeah. But we start to see all these trends of makeup videos of male drags on social media. In a way, something that used to be very marginalized. Yeah, the practice that used to be very marginalized is now gaining a kind of visibility. But of course, it does not mean that the drags are gaining widespread acceptance. Yeah, most of these video we see, they do not have any social message behind actually, or they do not actually clearly portray any kind of social message. It's not about doing something for the community directly. Yeah, but you know, when you see the video, is really a video with the story, and usually it's just you know, largely for entertainment. So again, it's making use of the mechanism of social media, you know, alongside the whole idea of neoliberalism, yeah, to make things work. So it's not, these are not videos that are pushing any agendas. Yeah, show you this example. This is about.
我们想看的来了。
This story is very interesting. It's about this guy called Ma Xiaotiao. Yeah, of course, you know, Ma Xiaotiao is definitely a fictional character, who lives in the same room in the hostel as his teacher. And Ma Xiaotiao likes to drag. So in this video, you know, Ma Xiaotiao tried to get the teacher to drag as well. So that's the whole idea.
你是不是忘点啥事儿？
我不爽！
哎呀，我给你介绍对象。
你净忽悠我！
我给你介绍好看的。
你给我这个天险我也不穿。
Yeah, so this is Ma Xiaotiao.
我在仰望月亮之上。
大家好，我们是
木
马组
合。
正片来了。
你背叛我。不对，你的手得伸直。
So this is they have lots of videos. Yeah. Okay.
我们
I
想
think that's about it for my short lecture. Okay, so coming up next, we'll hand over to Lisa Wong. And her topic today is 2021, is the billboard still relevant? So over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you might have to speak a bit louder. Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see? So today I'm going to talk a bit more about billboard and billboard advertising in why 2021 is because of the current pandemic that we are facing today. So I just want to put up a discussion here where we can discuss later on if billboard is still relevant in what is happening today in our society. With more people at home and then working from home, not coming out, but the billboard is out there. So as a media platform, how is billboard still relevant? So this is like the big question, and how are we doing in terms of advertising in general? So if you can see, this is Times Square, full of people all the time. We have a lot of viewership, pedestrians, a lot of cars. And it is one of the most expensive place to place your advertisements, one of the most expensive around the world, actually. Despite the many digital billboards that you see there, within short 2 kilometers, that one street. And this is Times Square in the past year, since 2020, where everybody is on lockdown. And I think this is a similar scene that you will see around the world, where billboards, some are shut down. You will see some are blank and being replaced with more of messaging about COVID-19, about asking people to stay at home. And the one question is, where are the advertisers, and how are these media owners, billboard media owners doing today? And is this going to, if the pandemic is still going to go on for the next, for 2021 and for the next year, what is the advertising scene going to be like, and how do we move forward from here? Okay. So this is what I gather from the past year since 2020. This is how the advertising spend has gone down in general. And if you can see, in average, it has gone down at least half of the margin since 2019. 2019 was before the pandemic strike. Let's say the pandemic start December 2019. So the whole of 2019 was still doing really well. These are Outfront Media, Clear Channel, JCDecaux are one of the largest billboard media owners around the world. They are the top three, they have companies and they have branches all around the world. And if they are not doing well, then the question would be, what are the smaller players doing in the rest of the world, where JCD is one of the top players there. They are considered the first, if not the second, in many countries around the world, and they are facing a decline in 66% in advertising expenditure. So this is like a really concerning and very worrying scene. In Malaysia, we have larger companies merging with the smaller companies, and some smaller companies are actually closing down. So how do we move forward from here? Before the pandemic, out of home in general was booming. If you would look at reports comparing to billboard media compared with other traditional media, TV advertising, radio, newspapers, they are all turning digital because of the different consumption habits that the consumers are shifting to. But being one of the only traditional media, billboard advertising is one of the only traditional media that has not changed their format. It's still that format, not going into digital. But in fact, their advertising spend is growing by the double digits. That was before the pandemic. But like pre-pandemic, the advertising spend was, like I wrote here, was growing at 7.1%. All right. But after the outbreak happened, everything sort of changed quite drastically. Advertising spend would be one of the first budgets that clients or advertisers or companies would actually cut by at least 20%. And in the past 2020, it has shrunk by 8.1% around the top 10 advertisers. These are numbers that I've gotten from New York Times and also from Nielsen. The advertising spend has dropped by 8.1% at the very least for the largest advertisers around the world. Advertisers cut back on the advertising budget by at least 44%. As I said just now, if advertisers are not spending, then how are media owners going to survive? And out of home, in particular, billboards is expected to go down by a lot more, okay? At least 21.7%. And if that is going to go on, well, billboard media owners are now taking loans from banks to maintain their sites, because all these billboards, you still need maintenance, and you still need to have something up there. You can't keep it blank for a very long time, so you still need something up there. That's when maintenance comes in. And to maintain them, billboard media owners are now taking loans. They are renegotiating contracts with airports, with all their clients, with public transit organizations on how do they actually still keep their board up there but not pay rental. For example, JCDecaux, where you can see most of their boards at transits, like bus stations, they're very famous for their transit billboards. Their transit boards are at bus stations, at train stations, and they're very famous for transits. And they are going for, instead of full compensations to their clients who have bought or who have put in their contracts throughout 2019 to 2020, they are only compensating at 25% instead of 100%. So not just media owners, billboard media owners are having this huge, suffering from this huge impact, but clients as well, advertisers as well, because on one hand, they will want to cut back their advertising budget way forward, but what they have committed for the year 2020, the compensation has been cut to just a mere 25% back, because media owners can't compensate at 100%. It's just nearly impossible. So then what we can see now is the big question. So is billboard still relevant today when we look at all these worrying scenes? As you can see here, this is Piccadilly Circus. It's empty and it's supposed to be full of life. It's one of the most expensive billboard. This is one of the most expensive one in London, and it's empty. So is it still relevant today? Would we still want to advertise on billboard again? Are we going to go fully just on the internet, fully digital, because everybody is at home? So let's look at this a bit more. Looking at billboards in terms of its benefits in general, marketers have access to this data that they understand consumers' purchasing patterns a lot more now. It can achieve a very high GRP reach for billboards compared to other traditional medias. Let's just put digital, as in the internet, aside for a moment. So if you look at people working from home, the billboard has the ability to actually gain awareness and to actually have interest building among new consumers. So they have that ability. They can generate recall in general. And these are all over, these data are all over in, you just have to search the effectiveness and the benefits of billboard advertising. You see all this, yeah. The billboard has capable of driving sales, and it's geographically location skewed. Unlike other traditional media, and they do not have that kind of advantage compared to billboard. And research has also shown that billboards could actually reinforce consumer consumption patterns as kind of a reminder. And of course, billboard advertising in general has the lowest cost per thousand in terms of reaching consumers, and they can reach a huge amount of consumers at one go. And you can actually place a lot of billboards at a time, and the cost is still much lower than any other traditional media. All right. So I would like to share this new data that I have gotten. And it's quite interesting in what we would read from what has happened. This research has been done in the past year. And I got the update in August. It was August 2020. They have compared digital, the internet, to billboard advertising. And it has said that billboard is still non-intrusive and have a lower annoyance compared to the internet. So if you want to compare that the internet is a lot more effective compared to the billboard, while it can be effective for a certain group of audiences, but in the larger scale, digital, basically the internet would have a higher potential to be seen as intrusive and a lot higher and a level of annoyance compared to the billboard. So this is one really interesting research that has been done by Fortenberry, and the resilience of to have it blocked or skipping is of course non-existent for billboards. It has the influence of having influencing prospective customers by 37.8%, which is quite high if you ask me, and increased customer retention even after purchase by 28.2%. And this has also increased reminders by 35.4%. And let me, despite all these percentages, let me also share where did this data come from. The research actually came from a pool of researchers who actually research on the people who would take the ambulance or their family members to nearby hospitals. So during emergencies, they found that despite being in a state of emergency, when you are in a state of a rush where you can't think a lot, which is the first that would pop up into your head when you are in that kind of urgency, would be certainly a very effective advertising. So a lot of them actually said that they actually remembered that there is a hospital nearby based on which billboard they actually saw. And almost none actually said TV advertising. Very low percentage actually said newspaper, because I assume that they would actually be more digital nowadays to actually read from their phones or from their tablets. And actually the next higher percentage would be the internet. But the highest percentage actually came from billboards. So this is actually a very interesting study that came out in the year 2020, and with a lot of people going to the hospitals. And I would assume that when you're in such an urgent situation, you wouldn't have time to actually think. So the first name that, or the first thing that actually pop up in your head would be something that gives you the best reminders of all. So this is quite an interesting one that I'm actually happy to share today with all of you. So moving forward, what can we say about billboard? Certainly, and this is quite a relevant billboard today, with the passing of Prince Philip. And if you can see, digital billboards would be the way forward. That's what I'm going to tell you. People are not going anywhere. Karimi and Orlansky, these are two really huge media agency CEOs. Yeah. So they actually say that people are not going anywhere. They are here in the city. And there would be an adverse awareness and appreciation of their surroundings even more when they are out. So we are all at home, but when we are out, that's when we will have a lot more appreciation for what is around us, and we will be more aware of our surroundings compared to before. And Orlansky said that an increasingly work from home world to an era of revenge shopping, similar to what we have seen in China when restrictions were lifted. So they believe that in the articles that have quoted them, they believe that the media agencies would bounce back really, really quick when things go back to normal. And they are saying that next moving forward of what we would see later on is that billboards would go back. Billboards advertising will pick up, where people would still advertise. You can't run away from not advertising. You can stop advertising for now. Maybe just a little bit with a very decreased amount of budget. But when we allowed, or when the situation allows again, the face of billboards will go towards digital very quickly because of its because of the demand, because of the amount of maintenance that we would see, because of the measurements that we would see that has improved today. You would see that clients are on the verge of demanding for digital billboards more than traditional billboards. Basically, it attracts it attracts the consumers a lot more compared to traditional media. And also, if you look at the costs that would be the amount of costs to actually advertise on digital billboards would be a lot more cost efficient compared to traditional billboards due to its maintenance and how it's very timely. You can actually change your messages based on by the minute. As long as you have, of course, if you have the creatives ready, you can actually change by the minute. So that's when the costing actually comes in. It's a lot more cost efficient, and it is more friendly in terms of budget for the advertisers. So way forward, they would demand a lot more advertising on digital billboards compared to traditional billboards because of the maintenance and how it would be more timely. And in terms of measurements, you would see that a lot more companies, research companies are coming out with measurements for digital billboards as well. But we will need more time for it to be published again, because right now a lot of the measurements are still for traditional billboards. Yeah. So if you ask me for the way forward, we would see people advertising again, but more on digital billboards. So I think this is my last slide already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you a lot. Well, thanks a lot, Lisa. And it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned about that billboard is still a very important source of advertising as compared to social media. Yeah, which is the topic that I talked about earlier. Yeah.
Sorry, I was about to. When you were speaking, I was thinking that it's something really relevant in our discussions that we can actually discuss together.
Yeah. Okay. I think like moving forward, we'll move on to our third and final speaker. Yeah, Xiaohong sir.
Hello.
Power of visual communication.
Hello,
so over to you.
Okay, thank you, Benny, and thank you, Lisa. Okay. So the topic that I have prepared, which is something related to one of the subjects that I'm responsible for the Master in Communication and Media Study offered by the University of Telemaqueta Pegaso. So since both of the speakers before were talking about the power of communication today, either is on social media, on TikTok, or the billboard, I think that no matter from the traditional media to the contemporary media today, we are moving more and more to have an encounter with the power of visual communication. So when we talk about visual communication, it is something that we can really trace back to the very earlier civilizations of the mankind. We recognize visual is always a very powerful form of communication. That's why we leave marks, in the like in the cave painting to record. Okay, so the early form of communication was recognized as pictography, And from the pictography, later on, it developed into the languages that we are using today. But since we can talk so much about the power of visual communication, before I really want to talk about visual communication from the perspective of advertising communication, I would like to remind the visual can connect with audience faster and with more emotion than word, like when words alone. So today, especially during the pandemic, I think we spend even more time looking on our phone screen, our computer screen, and there are so many information traveling right in front of us. And usually, the one that unless it is something that really we are concerning and we have been following up, otherwise, sometimes we click on to a certain button, or when we stop for a few seconds to really look at certain information that come across to us, it is actually the visual that getting our attention. So a powerful visual is therefore, no matter it's in the form of icon, a photography, a painting, or in whatsoever format, if we could use it strategically, put it in the context of advertising communication, then we could see how it can work effectively and make us like a better communicator. So if we talk about the power of visual, so for the following time, I'm going to focus about the power of visual in advertising communication. So, for the audience, I also would like to remind you that, as an advertiser, or when we are working on the management of visual images, we never do it for ourselves, okay? So for an agency, we always do it to fulfill the need of the client. We also have to think about from the perspective of the audience, which is the consumer. So, I would like to let you know the following keyword, which is the audience, content, option, color, unique, and only it, how it works together when we, come across the construction and the dissemination of powerful visual in advertising communication. So for audience, the first and foremost, no matter, okay, what will be the product, so communication, we really think about it from three perspectives, which is the message, the channel, and the destination. So the content, which is the message, either you are selling a car, providing a specific, like let's say, Thai massage service, your audiences is very important, because the piece of advertising communication that you are going to generate will need to talk to them, and the audience must be able to associate with the message that you try to visualize. So understand where is our audience come from, for example, just now when Dr. Lisa talking about the billboard will be even more powerful when people are allowed to leave home and not really working for home or have time to go out and explore to the surrounding again. Then we will be more happy to look at, oh, this is what's going on around us. At the same time, the TikTok video, that when they are like just now Dr. Benny used the word curated, okay, so it is curated. When it's curating, then I think that there is a concept of audience in mind. So to know the audience and thinking about selecting the right visual to that particular group of audience should be the first consideration. So when we are working on powerful visual, to make it objectively, we will need to think about who do we want to talk to. So I'm getting the example of a coffee packaging from northern part in Thailand, which is known as Doi Chang Coffee. Now the content of this, there are so many coffee brands, and the Thai government is currently want to promote, okay, the national brand or like the brand or the coffee that it could represent the uniqueness of Thai taste or Thainess. So when come to the selection of the images, the audience, of course, you will see this type of coffee being sold in the form of a series design that you could see as a souvenir in the airport, as well as you can see it in any supermarket. So to look for the suitable content, after you know the audience, you really need to think about, okay, the visual expression that you want the audience to connect with. So for example, the Doi Chang coffee go for the keyword and the key image to associate, the key message with heritage. So, when you are supporting Doi Chang coffee, or when you think about Doi Chang coffee, they want you to think about, this is the traditional heritage part of the life from the people, from this part of the world. So you want what do you want the audience to know and how they will feel and think about this coffee? Whether you want to inform them that this is, a specific coffee coming from Thailand, at the same time, you want to persuade them to buy, and these images will later on serve as the reminder as well. So thinking about the audience as the most important, because, audience from different generation, cultural background, to put it simple, which is the different demographic and psychographic, they will respond to a different visual images differently. So after that, only we think about, how to select the right visual image that could express, most appropriately the content that we are going to share. And when we are expressing this content, we also have to think about, at the same time, how could we inform, persuade, and remind the audience, through the selections of the most suitable visual images. So, after the audience thinking about the content, then we move to the option. Because there are so many selections, so we need to think about a strategic visual approach. And the strategic visual approach will also mean that, when the content, when you see the similar content and the message from the packaging move all the way to a poster design into, a phone apps, what would be the link? What would be the visual, key message that it could link all these options together? So, for example, in this case, the gentleman that that you see who is the leader of the tribal group, he was being designed into the form of the logo. Then the logo of Doi Chang will appear right at the middle of the packaging, in the poster, and later on being transformed into the specific icon to represent this particular brand. From then never underestimate the power of color. Now, when we talk about powerful advertising communications, especially from visual communication perspective, when we close our eye, we could recall the very powerful color of McDonald's, which is not only the shape of the golden arch, also the powerful warm red and yellow. So the similar approach, we see it in KFC, we see it in Pizza Hut. So for Starbucks, okay, the green double-tail mermaid, that is, color if even those we look at it from a very far distance, okay, not very clearly, but from we could already told ourselves, that is the Starbucks over there. And color, apart from being stand very powerfully in the form of visual communication, it could also build up a very powerful identity of the brand. So thinking about any brand or any product that you are familiar with, or currently you are their main supporter or consumer, thinking about how that particular color has connect and make connection with you. And apart from color, a unique sign, a unique graphic that is specifically designed is also very important to make your brand and advertising communication to be outstanding. Now, when we talk about the most well-known, okay, coffee brand around the world, I think undoubtedly the audience will agree with me. Starbucks is definitely, like number one, or number two. I will I will say definitely say number one when we talk about the most popular coffee brand around the world. Now, every time when we come across, let's say a cafe, a coffee shop design or coffee product design, people, unconsciously will present, a coffee mug or a coffee bean and so on. But when we think about, the most well-known coffee brand in this world is using a double-tailed mermaid. Okay, so the logo was first introduced in the 1970s, and the image of the double-tailed mermaid, which is also a siren, was represent the exoticism of coffee bean at the time, which is, we know coffee originally come from South America. So today, when we think about Starbucks, the double-tailed mermaid, in the crown has become a significant, unique visual that we are able to memorize and associate with. So at the same time, when you think about the golden arch, the powerful graphic of, yes, Nike just do it, is actually, work on the same thing. So when we think about powerful visual communication, ladies and gentlemen, the most unique, okay? That is also from strategic communication. I always say that we don't marry the best man, we marry the most special man, okay? So, you fall in love with the most special one, you don't fall in love with the best one, because, the best will change, but the special one, you always need to make it or continue to make it special. Then not only to make it special and not to make it memorable, you need to own it. Now, to own it means, a powerful visual for the branding development, you need to change it, like you need to use it for a period of time. Now, why, it is very important not to look for, of course, we have the stock image. Today it seems to be very easy to get, to find the stock images that you could, mix and match the visual, and it seems to be work very well. But if you really want to have a very unique and special one, a self-commissioned visual is still very highly recommended, which is a tailor-made, special for your brand and for your communication. So people will, given a different look and have a strong memory about your brand. Believe it or not, actually the first 5 ideas come across our mind are mostly the idea that we have seen before and something that we are familiar with. So if if we want to be special and to be to be memorized, you created the image, and later on we need to use it for a period of time to build up the brand, to use it in all your advertising communication or your integrated marketing communication, and make it work as a powerful visual. So, that will be, if you come across, let's say the brand Muji, okay? Muji, from Japan, is the brand without logo, okay? So when you look at their product, you couldn't really spot the Muji logo, and that is what they want to go for the most special. So if you're really asking me, how powerful is visual communication, is definitely very powerful, especially we are surrounding, okay, by all these interesting visual images that try to catch our attention every day. But when if I'm given 15 minutes to share with you how visual communication is going to work from advertising communication, you always have to remember, we do it not for ourselves, we do it for the audience, the content, so only when we know who we are going to talk to, then we will generate the content and look for the right visual image. There are so many options available, but you need to make sure that the option that you are going to select it, it will work for your packaging, it will work for your advertisement, it will work, as small as a small logo all the way when you enlarge it back, like when you enlarge it really big on the billboard. So color is always something that, you know, we need to pay a lot of attention to, because like, you know, psychologically, color is the one to drag our attentions, you know, toward it. Then the unique, you know, form and shape, you know, and color always work together. And in order to make it work, you know, no matter how powerful it is, we need to work for a period of time and like only by doing that, then we can own it as our brand and use it for advertising communication. Thank you very much. That is what I had prepared. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot, you know, Xiaohong. Yeah, you know, all right, thank you. Okay, so I think, you know, in view of time, you know, maybe we will just have one question, you know, per speaker. And, you know, since we ended off with Xiaohong, maybe we start with a question to you. And I think maybe I will ask the question to Xiaohong.
Okay.
Yeah? So, you know, how important do you think are visualization for popular culture and its dissemination?
How important are visualization for popular culture and its dissemination?
Yeah.
Well, today, you know, I think one thing is, in the context of globalization, when we discuss about the young people are very much, you know, looking alike. Okay, for example, we have the concept based on what you have sharing as well. You know, we have seen many Korean flower boy around the world. Okay, like we see like the young people dress or, you know, make themselves, okay, look in a similar way with their, you know, like with their, or look like their idol from South Korea, which is, you know, I think they learn all this, you know, aesthetic, and they learn all this, you know, way of interpreting their youth and their power. Okay, from like definitely from all the visual images they have explored too, you know, from the drama like they have watched, you know, and all the products and like the advertisement like they have explored too. So if you ask me, you know, like definitely visual, you know, communications, to visualize a specific concept, you know, a popular culture is very, you know, significant and able to influence, especially, you know, if you look at the young people today.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Like maybe I will invite Xiaohong to ask a question to Lisa. Yeah.
Thank you. For the billboard still relevant, I think, well, it's very interesting because, you know, we always think about, now we are so digitalized, you know, everything move online. So like for Lisa, you know, may I know, will measurement be different for digital billboards? You know, like when we talk about digitalization, and then you talk about the, you know, the traditional billboard, and how about, you know, will measurement be different for the digital billboard based on, you know, like what you have shared?
Digital billboard in measurements in general will definitely be different because of how digital billboards function. It's very different compared to other medias, and also definitely very different from how traditional billboards function. Like traditional billboards are they are non-digital, so they are there all the time. So basically the reach would be different compared to digital billboards, because digital billboards you can have up to 12 advertisers on one board. So in terms of measurements, basically it will be very different. So you have to go by even going back to seconds. How many seconds have each consumers be exposed to? So that would need a lot more research to look into how do we actually measure that. And if advertisers want more exposure, how do they actually gain more exposure on digital billboards? While on traditional billboards, you own the reach the whole time. So in terms of measurement, definitely it will be very different.
Okay, all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Lisa. Yeah, thanks for your answer. And maybe for my presentation, I will invite maybe Lisa to ask me a question. Yeah.
I love your presentation a lot because I actually mentioned that social media is actually a lot more intrusive compared to billboards. Very, very different, yeah. But do you think sharing on social media in general, is it good or bad? By looking at how sharing in general should be a very positive act in general. So on social media now with TikTok and so many people sharing, you know, so is it good or bad?
Well, of course, as I mentioned in the lecture, you know, sharing has been kind of portrayed as really positive, yeah, even since we were young. And social media companies, you know, riding on this whole, I mean, they are also riding on this whole concept about sharing is good. Of course, they have their own hidden agenda behind for people to share, you know, on their social media platform. So on social media, I wouldn't say whether it's really good or bad, because there are some evidences of or actually research and reports of people who mention that actually social media actually empowers them, and to be able to share about themselves or to form their own subjectivities, I think is a very important tool. Some even mention that it's very therapeutic, in that sense, to be able to share about themselves, to disclose about themselves, and to form their self-identity, yeah, through the social media. But on the other hand, we also know that you know, like whatever we do on social media, we leave a trace, right? And it's very hard to remove such a trace. And so there are also issues. I think there's also growing issues of privacy and whatnot on social media. And of course, in more recent years, there's a growing debate about fake news and you know, and how sharing actually, you know, really proliferated the whole agenda of fake news. Although, you know, I personally don't agree with the term fake news per se, because, you know, I suppose, you know, everything that we see, or, you know, every information that is out there is some sort of a construct, yeah, and it's created and represented in certain ways that. So we can actually define, or, you know, it depends on how we define what is real or fake. But definitely there are some misinformation. There are certain kind of falsehoods that's going around. And I think sharing is actually also, you know, creating some of these issues. Yeah. But I think one thing we have to bear in mind is also that, you know, a lot of things that we do on social media, or, you know, or the internet or the cyberspace in general, is no longer just, you know, really about good or bad. It's really, you know, because it's already getting part and parcel. Whether it's good or whether it's bad, it's not going to go away, right? Or it's not going to, yeah, it's becoming part and parcel of our life. And I think it's important to be able, of course, to continue to be critical about all these, you know, like whatever we do, you know, online, and to always be reflexive about what should be, you know, what are some of the concerns or some of the actions that we do, yeah, you know, that could be like creating, like in fact today when I share about men on social media, I'm actually quite concerned also, because, you know, I'm quite worried that people might get an idea about why are we talking about men, you know, where men always have the privilege, you know, and now I'm trying to talk about the kind of feminization of men, you know, and, you know, things like that. Of course, we have to be, you know, very critical of such issues as well. But I thought it's an interesting, you know, topic to share, because not many people talk about men as well. So I think criticality is also something crucial here. Yeah, thank you. So thanks for the question. I think that's all the time, you know, we have for our session today. But I believe we will definitely have, you know, another seminar on communication and media studies sometime down the road. So, you know,
inviting us.
Yeah. So once again, thank you so much, Shahong and Lisa,
Thank
and have a very good night. Yeah.